Inside San Pedro, the prison with no guards. A cartel city behind bars. Subscribe now before this video disappears, because what you're about to hear about San Pedro prison has been hidden for years. Like this video and comment if you dare, because once you know how deep this story goes, you'll never look at prisons the same way again. The heavy iron door of the La Paz police van slammed shut with a clang that echoed off the surrounding buildings. It was just after dawn on a rainy Tuesday when Inspector Daniela Reyes stepped into the courtyard of San Pedro prison. She'd walked into dangerous jails before, but this one was different from the start. No armed guards in the yard, no gun towers bristling with rifles. Instead, barefoot children chased a ball past vendors selling empanadas, and women hung laundry from the barred windows. It looked like a ramshackle neighborhood, except for the 20-foot concrete wall encircling it. For years, whispers about San Pedro had circulated through Bolivia's press, a prison run not by the state but by delegados, inmate bosses who collected rent, taxed businesses, and maintained order. Tourists had even been allowed inside to gawk at the prison city until the government shut the program down after a series of scandals. Now, a murder inside the walls had dragged the world's attention back. A Canadian backpacker who had bribed his way in for an unofficial tour had turned up dead, his body left in an alley of the Choncho Corrito sector. Official reports said natural causes. Witnesses said otherwise. Daniela had been sent by the Interior Ministry to find out what had happened, but she knew the real investigation was bigger. Drugs manufactured inside the prison, children born and raised behind the walls, and a hidden economy worth millions of dollars. Her contact, a former journalist named Luis Arce, had promised her a VD. Hence, photos, names, even samples of cocaine paste cooked inside San Pedro's kitchens. But the night before their meeting, Luis had vanished. She walked deeper into the yard, past stalls selling soft drinks and cigarettes. Men in street clothes eyed her with open curiosity. A boy no older than 10 tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Señorita, you shouldn't be here." He darted away before she could reply. At the center of the yard, a large mural depicted the Virgin of Copacabana holding scales of justice in one hand and a bag of coca leaves in the other. Beneath it, a man in a white shirt and gold chain stood on a makeshift stage addressing a crowd. "Delegado Mayor," one inmate muttered to Daniela. The man's name was Ernesto El Tío Calderón, a former low-level trafficker turned prison kingpin. Officially, he was serving 20 years. In reality, he ruled San Pedro's internal government. She noted how his security, other inmates in matching blue vests, stood at the edges of the crowd, scanning for threats. She saw no uniformed guards anywhere. Only at the far gate, a bored policeman smoked a cigarette, pretending not to notice the meeting. A commotion drew her to the pasta sector, where inmates paid extra for better cells. In a narrow hallway, she found a padlocked door smeared with dark stains. An older woman in a faded apron wept nearby. "They took him," she whispered. "Luis, they took him last night." Daniela's heart clenched. "Where?" The woman shook her head. "Basement. Only El Tío has the key." A basement in San Pedro meant one thing: the disciplinary room, where debts were collected and disputes settled without state interference. Daniela knew she couldn't just demand entry. She would have to play by the prison's rules, or find a crack in them. She left the hallway and moved toward the kitchen area, where the smell of frying onions mixed with the sharp tang of chemicals. Inmates stirred large pots over open flames, their contents not food but a murky coca paste mixture. She snapped a photo with her phone. A man stepped into her path, smiling but with eyes like flint. "No photos, Doctora," he said softly. "This is a family place." She slid the phone back into her pocket. "I'm here about the dead tourist." He shrugged. "People die." She tried another angle. "I'm also here about Luis Arce." For the first time, his smile faded. "I don't know that name." But she saw his fingers twitch. A tell. He did know. Back in the yard, El Tío finished his speech. Inmates dispersed like citizens leaving a town meeting. He descended from the stage and walked toward a small building near the wall, the only structure with an actual lock on its door. 2 blue-vested guards followed. Daniela noted the time. If Luis was alive, he was in there. She crossed the yard to the chapel, one of the few places considered neutral. Inside, peeling saints looked down on pews filled with women praying. She slipped into a side room and opened her notebook. Luis had given her a crude map of San Pedro with circles marking hot zones. One of the circles corresponded to the locked building. Next to it, Luis had written a single word, archivo. An archive, or a cell where records were kept. Maybe both. If she could get inside, she might find proof, not just of drug production, but of a whole shadow government. But she couldn't do it alone. A voice behind her said, "You're making a mistake." She spun. It was the boy from the yard, holding a crumpled piece of paper. He handed it to her and ran off. On it, scrawled in a shaky hand, "Midnight, laundry room, come alone." She hid the note and left the chapel. Above the walls, storm clouds gathered over La Paz, swallowing the last daylight. The prison city's alleys grew darker, neon signs flickering to life over cantinas and makeshift shops. Children were called inside. The smell of frying meat was replaced by cigarette smoke and gasoline. By midnight, the laundry room was silent except for the drip of water from a broken pipe. Daniela stepped inside, hand near the small revolver hidden under her jacket. A figure emerged from behind a washing machine, a gaunt man with hollow cheeks and eyes darting like birds. It was Luis. "You're alive," she breathed. "Barely." He glanced toward the door. "They know about the tourist. They know about me. I don't have much time." He handed her a small USB stick. "Everything is on here. Photos, ledgers, names of officials who take bribes. Proof that El Tío runs a cartel from inside San Pedro. Why give it to me? Because they're going to kill me," he said flatly, "and because you're the only one who came." A noise outside made them both stiffen. Footsteps, voices speaking low in Spanish. Luis's eyes widened. "They're here!" He pushed the USB stick into her hand. "Run!" Before she could move, the door slammed open. Two blue-vested enforcers stepped in, bats in their hands. Behind them, El Tío himself filled the doorway, calm as a man arriving for a dinner party. "Señora Inspectora," he said smoothly, "you've been touring our little city. Do you like what you see?" Daniela slid the USB stick into her pocket. "It's different," he smiled. "It's order. Out there, chaos. In here, we have rules." "Rules that allow murder?" she asked. His smile didn't change. "Rules that keep the peace. That Canadian, for example. He broke the rules. He paid with his life, just like your friend Luis will pay." Luis tried to back away, but one enforcer grabbed him. "Please," he whispered. "I'll leave. I won't talk." El Tío raised a hand, and the enforcer stopped. "I'm a reasonable man," he said. "Inspector, come to my office. We'll discuss this like adult." Daniela's heart raced. She knew stepping into his office could mean disappearance, but refusing could mean immediate violence. She glanced at Luis. His eyes pleaded with her. "I'll come," she said. El Tío's smile widened. "Good. Bring the journalist." They marched them through dim alleys where shadows moved behind barred windows. Inmates watched silently, some crossing themselves. At the locked building, a blue-vested man opened the door with a heavy key. Inside was a small but tidy office lined with file cabinets. A desk sat at the center, papers neatly stacked. On the wall hung a photo of El Tío, shaking hands with a smiling politician. He gestured for Daniela to sit. "Coffee?" he asked. She stayed standing. "No." He shrugged, sat behind the desk, and steepled his fingers. "You think you can expose me, but you don't understand. Without me, San Pedro becomes hell. Families live here, children. I keep the chaos outside from coming in." Luis spat blood on the floor. "You're a trafficker." El Tío's eyes flicked to him. "I'm a businessman, and you're a liability." He nodded to an enforcer, who pulled open a file cabinet. Inside weren't files, but bricks of coca paste wrapped in plastic. Another cabinet held stacks of cash. Daniela's phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from an unknown number. "Get out. They know about the USB." She backed toward the door. "I need air," she said. El Tío stood. "You're not leaving. Not until you understand the rules." He snapped his fingers. The enforcers grabbed Luis and dragged him toward a back door. Daniela lunged, but one enforcer blocked her path. Through the door, she heard stairs descending. A basement. El Tío opened a small safe and pulled out a ledger. "This," he said, "is the real San Pedro. Accounts, payments, shipments. The government knows. They get their cut. You think they sent you here to stop me? They sent you here to warn me." Daniela's stomach dropped. Was Ruiz involved? Had she been set up? El Tio stepped closer, the ledger in his hands. But you're stubborn. That makes you Jaraus. So, here's your choice. Walk out now, forget what you saw, or go down there with your friend. He pointed to the basement door. Faint cries rose from below. Daniela's mind raced. The USB in her pocket, the message on her phone, the smell of chemicals, the hidden children, all pieces of a puzzle she had only begun to see. If she left now, Luis would die and the story would vanish. If she stayed, she might die too. El Tio smiled as if reading her thoughts. Tick-tock. She took a deep breath, her hand brushing the revolver under her jacket. I'm going down, she said. El Tio raised an eyebrow. Brave. He opened the basement door with a theatrical flourish. A damp, chemical-tinged draft wafted up. Somewhere below, Luis screamed. Daniela descended into the darkness. The stairs spiraled down into a throat of damp concrete. Each step Daniela took echoed like a warning. The smell changed from detergent to ammonia and burnt coca paste, the scent of the prison's hidden industry. Water dripped somewhere ahead. Luis's muffled cries floated up, then stopped abruptly. At the bottom, she found herself in a low corridor lined with peeling paint and flickering bulbs. Metal doors sat at intervals, some ajar, some locked. From behind one came the steady whir of machinery. From another, the thin cough of a child. She felt as if she had stepped into the city's underworld, a hidden San Pedro beneath the open one above. Two blue-vested enforcers waited by a heavy door at the end. One held a set of keys, the other cradled a shotgun. They watched her approach without expression. She raised her badge. Inspector Daniela Reyes, I'm taking custody of the journalist. The one with the shotgun smiled faintly. Here, the delegado has custody. Before she could reply, the door opened. Warm, chemical-laden air poured out. El Tio himself emerged, immaculate as always, but sure. His eyes now glinted with irritation rather than charm. You're persistent, he said. I thought you'd run. I'm here for Luis, she said. He gestured inside. Then see for yourself. She stepped past him. The room beyond was a makeshift laboratory. Tables cluttered with glassware, drums of solvents, bundles of coca leaves. In the center, under a bare bulb, Luis sat tied to a chair, a bruise blooming across his cheek. His eyes widened when he saw her. They're moving it tonight, he gasped. The whole shipment. El Tio shut the door behind them. This is my city, Inspector. Without me, the gangs from El Alto would butcher everyone here. The police get their cut. Politicians get their cut. Even your colonel knows this. Daniela kept her face neutral, though Ruiz's warning echoed in her mind. If you're so essential, why kill tourists? Why disappear journalists? They break the rules, El Tio said simply, and because sometimes an example is necessary. He moved to a steel cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a ledger identical to the one she'd glimpsed upstairs. This is what you're after, yes? Names, accounts, shipments. You take it, you die. You leave it, you live. Luis struggled against his ropes. Don't listen. He'll kill us anyway. El Tio's gaze shifted to him. Be silent. Daniela felt the USB stick in her pocket like a hot coal. She needed to get both Luis and evidence out before dawn. Outside, thunder rolled over La Paz. A storm was building. Let him go, she said, and I'll walk out. El Tio's smile returned. You're bargaining with nothing. He nodded to the enforcers. Take her phone. One stepped forward. Daniela raised her hand. Wait. If you kill me, there will be questions. If I disappear like the Canadian, this whole place will be raided. El Tio tilted his head. Perhaps. Or perhaps a bribe will suffice. It always has. A new sound rose from the corridor. The sharp ring of a bell, then shouting. One of the enforcers poked his head out, eyes wide. Delegado, the outside gate, police. El Tio cursed softly in Spanish. He turned to Daniela. This is your doing? I came alone, she said, but her heart leapt. Maybe Ruiz had sent reinforcements. Maybe the story would not die here. He snapped orders in rapid Spanish. Enforcers grabbed crates of chemicals, shoving them toward a hidden door at the back of the lab. Move the shipment to the sewer, he barked. Now! In the confusion, Daniela slipped behind Luis, pulling a small knife from her boot. She sawed at the ropes. Can you run? She whispered. He nodded weakly. If we get out. The back door slammed. Shouts echoed closer, boots pounding, gunshots cracked. Not warning shots, but real. El Tio's calm cracked. "Get me the ledger," he shouted. Daniela cut the last rope. "Go," she hissed to Luis. They ducked behind a stack of coca bales as an explosion rocked the corridor. A flashbang or tear gas grenade. Smoke filled the lab, stinging her eyes. She groped for Luis's hand and crawled toward a side passage she'd glimpsed earlier. Bullets punched holes in the wall. Someone screamed. She felt the ledger's edge brush her boot. El Tio must have dropped it in the chaos. She snatched it, clutching it to her chest. They stumbled into the side passage just as a second explosion shook the lab. The passage was narrow and dark, lined with pipes dripping condensation. It sloped downward, the air growing colder. "Where does it go?" Luis coughed. "Out, I hope," she said. Behind them, muffled gunfire and shouting faded. Ahead, the passage ended at a rusted grate. Beyond it, she saw the faint shimmer of streetlight reflected on water, the river that ran past the prison wall. They had found the sewer exit. She braced her feet and shoved. The grate screeched but held. She shoved again, muscles straining. It gave an inch, then another. Luis squeezed through first, landing knee-deep in foul water. She followed, clutching the ledger in a ploss. Tick bag she'd ripped from a chemical drum. They waded down the tunnel, guided by the echo of rushing water. Somewhere above, sirens wailed and helicopters thudded. A voice shouted through a loudspeaker in Spanish. "National Police, drop your weapons!" Luis laughed weakly. Maybe they came after all. Daniela gripped his arm. "We're not safe yet." They emerged at a drainage outlet under a bridge. The night air smelled of wet asphalt and diesel. Across the street, police vehicles blocked the prison gates, blue lights flashing. But between them and freedom, a dark SUV idled. Its headlights flickered once. A signal. Two men stepped out, silhouettes crisp against the rain. Not police, not guards. Something else. Luis froze. "Who are they?" Daniela's stomach dropped. She recognized one of the men, Colonel Ruiz. He walked toward them, coat collar up against the rain. "Give me the ledger," he said. "You set me up," she whispered. He shook his head. "You don't understand. If that ledger goes public, it's not just El Tio who falls. Ministers, generals, presidents, the country burns." "Then let it burn," she said. He raised his hand. The other man lifted a pistol. "Don't make this hard." Luis stepped in front of her. "She risked everything," he said. "At least let her live." Ruiz's eyes softened for a moment. "You're both in over your heads." Sirens wailed louder from the prison. Gunfire cracked. The SUV's driver leaned out. "Colonel, we have to go." Ruiz looked at Daniela. "Hand it over. Walk away." Rain streamed down her face, mixing with sweat. In her pocket, the USB stick still held everything Luis had given her. In her other hand, the ledger bag sagged with water. She thought of the graves under La Modelo, of Camilo's blood on her hands, of the children playing soccer inside San Pedro. If she gave up now, nothing would change. She took a deep breath. "No," Ruiz sighed. "Then I'm sorry." The man with the pistol raised it. At that moment, a helicopter roared overhead, its spotlight blasting the bridge with white light. Two national police emblems gleamed on its side. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Drop your weapons!" Chaos erupted. Ruiz cursed, ducking behind the SUV. The gunman fired at the helicopter. Bullets sparked off concrete. Daniela grabbed Luis's hand and ran toward the riverbank, clutching the ledger. They scrambled down the embankment as searchlights swept the area. More sirens approached from the city. Behind them, Ruiz shouted something lost in the noise. They slid into the river just as another shot rang out. Water closed over their heads, icy and fast. Daniela surfaced gasping, still gripping the plastic bag. Luis swam beside her, his face pale. Ahead, under another bridge, she saw a ladder bolted to the wall. They clung to it, hauling themselves onto a narrow ledge. Above, police vans screeched to a halt. Boots thundered. Voices shouted orders. Luis collapsed against the wall, coughing. "Did we make it?" he asked. Daniela looked at the ledger bag. It was torn. Water seeped in. She pulled it open. Pages blurred but still legible. Names, accounts, proof. "We made it this far," she said. From the bridge above, a voice shouted, "Inspector Reyes, this way!" She looked up. A uniformed officer leaned over the railing, hand outstretched. For a moment, she didn't know if he was friend or foe. Then she heard Ruiz's SUV start, tires screeching away into the night. He was running. She shoved the ledger into her jacket and climbed the ladder, Luis following. They were hauled over the railing into a circle of armed police. Floodlights lit their faces. Someone took the ledger bag from her hands. Cameras flashed. She staggered, blinking in the glare. The officer who had called to her handed her a radio. "The minister wants to speak to you," he said. A voice crackled over the line. "Inspector Reyes, we have the prison surrounded. Your evidence will be secured, but you must come with us now." She hesitated. "Where?" "To the ministry," the voice said. "For your protection." Luis grabbed her sleeve. "Don't trust them," he whispered. "Not after Ruiz." She met his eyes. "We don't have a choice." Two officers guided them toward a waiting van. Behind them, the helicopter's spotlight swept the prison walls, illuminating the chaos within. Inmates shouted. Fire burned in the yard. The night smelled of smoke and rain. Daniela climbed into the van, the USB stick still hidden in her boot. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of San Pedro's walls rising against the storm. Inside, El Tío was either fighting or fleeing. Outside, the network was already moving to contain the damage. The van pulled away, its siren silent. Luis slumped beside her. "What now?" he asked. Daniela looked at the USB in her hand. "Now, we find out who really wanted us inside." Rain streaked the windows as La Paz receded into darkness. She had evidence, but no allies she could trust. And somewhere in the city, Colonel Ruiz still held power. The van turned down a side street. Its lights flicked off. Daniela's pulse quickened. "Where are we going?" she asked. No one answered. Hit subscribe now if you haven't already, because the ending of this story isn't the one anyone expected, and you don't want to miss the next one. The van's windows turned into black mirrors as it rolled deeper into La Paz's sleeping streets. Rain streaked sideways across the glass, and the siren stayed off. Daniela pressed her palm to the cold metal seat and felt the engine's vibration quicken. She glanced at Luis, who stared at the floor, lips moving silently. Two uniformed officers sat across from them, faces expressionless. The city lights fell away. They were heading into the industrial zone near the river. She leaned forward. "Where are we going?" No answer. Luis touched her arm. "They're not taking us to the ministry." The van slowed. A warehouse loomed ahead, its corrugated metal doors rising like the mouth of a cave. The driver honked twice. Smaller door rolled up. Inside, pale fluorescent light spilled onto wet asphalt. Daniela's stomach clenched. She recognized the symbol spray-painted on the door, a stylized winged coca leaf. She'd seen it in the prison's tunnels, El Tío's mark. The van rolled inside and stopped. The doors locked with a click. One of the officers spoke at last, low and almost apologetic. "Orders from above," he said. "We were told to bring you here." Daniela's pulse hammered. "Who's here?" A voice echoed from the shadows. "Someone you've been chasing." Colonel Ruiz stepped into the light, rain glistening on his coat. He looked tired, but his eyes were hard. "You should have taken my offer," he said. "Now you've forced my hand." Behind him, crates were stacked high, stamped with the logos of government aid shipments. Men in plain clothes moved among them, checking clipboards, glancing at Daniela and Luis. It wasn't a rescue operation. It was a transfer. The prison's hidden economy spilling out into the city under official cover. "You work for El Tío," Daniela said. Ruiz shook his head. "No, we work together. Without us, San Pedro would collapse, and so would half the city's economy. You think you're exposing criminals. You're exposing the glue that keeps the peace." Luis spat on the floor. "The glue is blood." Ruiz's expression flickered. "You could still walk away," he said to Daniela. "Give me the USB. Give me the ledger. We'll put you on a plane tonight. New name, new life." Daniela felt the small stick hidden in her boot. The wet ledger pages pressed to her chest. The story she had risked everything for was right here, surrounded by crates of drugs disguised as aid. She thought of the children playing soccer inside San Pedro, of Luis tied to a chair, of Camilo's body under La Modelo's chapel. She would not walk away. "I'm not giving you anything," she said. Ruiz sighed. "Then we'll take it." Two men moved forward. Daniela shifted, pulling the revolver from her jacket. She fired once into the ceiling. The echo cracked like thunder. "Stay back," she said. "The world already has the evidence." Ruiz's eyes narrowed. "Lies." Luis straightened, clutching his side. "Check the news," he said. One of the men pulled out a phone, tapped, his face drained of color. It's everywhere, he whispered. Photos, videos, bank accounts. Ruiz snatched the phone, scrolling fast. Headlines flashed. San Pedro prison cartel exposed. Secret economy of Bolivia's most notorious prison revealed. International outlets were picking it up. The uploads from the safe server had gone live. Daniela saw it land. The moment Ruiz realized the network was no longer hidden, for the first time his hands trembled. "You can kill us," she said, "but you can't kill the story." He looked up slowly. "Maybe not, but I can slow it down." He raised his pistol. Luis moved without thinking, shoving Daniela aside as the shot cracked. The bullet caught him high in the shoulder. He fell against a crate, blood staining the wet concrete. Daniela dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her hand to the wound. "Stay with me," she whispered. Police sirens wailed outside, louder now. The warehouse door rattled under fists. "National Police! Open up!" Ruiz hesitated, caught between escape and arrest. The men around him looked at one another, panic spreading. Another shot rang out, this time from the door. Metal splintered. Armed officers poured in, shouting orders. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Daniela dragged Luis behind a stack of crates as bullets sparked off metal. She saw Ruiz drop his pistol and raise his hands. 2 officers tackled him to the ground. Others cuffed the men in plain clothes. For the first time in years, the network was breaking in real time. A medic knelt beside Luis, applying pressure to his wound. "He's lucky," the medic said. "It missed the artery." Daniela sat back against the crate, trembling. Outside, dawn was breaking over La Paz, painting the wet streets gold. She pulled the USB stick from her boot and held it up. It felt lighter now. An officer approached, eyes wide. "Inspector Reyes," he said, "the minister wants you in the Capitol. You'll testify. This is going to blow everything open." She looked at Luis, pale but conscious. "We'll go," she said, "but together." They were escorted out into the morning light. Cameras flashed as Ruiz was led past them in cuffs, his eyes burning with hatred and fear. Reporters shouted questions. For once, Daniela had no answer. In the distance, the walls of San Pedro prison rose like an old castle. Children were still playing soccer in the yard. Women still hung laundry from windows. Life inside went on, but the myth of the prison with no guards had cracked. On the steps of the police truck, Daniela turned to the cameras. "This is only the beginning," she said. "What you saw today is what happens when the state abandons its duty. We're bringing it into the light." Luis managed a weak smile. "Tell them to subscribe," he murmured. She laughed despite herself. "If you think this story was intense," she said to the reporters, "you're not ready for the next one." As the truck pulled away, the city opened before them. The sun climbed higher, burning off the rain. Daniela closed her eyes, feeling the weight of what they had done. The evidence was out. The network was falling. But she knew there were other prisons, other networks, other hidden cities waiting to be exposed. The fight was only beginning.